Welcome to Public Safety Talk Radio, the podcast for all of our heroes in public safety, including law enforcement professionals, firefighters, EMTs, corrections officers, healthcare workers, and more. This show is produced by the POCUA and is founded upon its Soundness initiative.
This episode is sponsored by Police Mortgage. Police Mortgage is a full-service mortgage company dedicated to serving police officers and first responders. Founded in 2008, Police Mortgage offers a variety of mortgage products tailored to meet the needs of those who serve and protect. Police Mortgage, for first responders who are second to none.
I am Ken Bader, your host for Public Safety Talk Radio, and I have another great guest. I always have great guests, but this one is special. You've heard me talk to the great Randy Sutton a few times on this show about the Wounded Blue and the great work that they're doing. Well, I've got the new, or fairly new, executive director of the Wounded Blue, Jesse Watts, who is a retired sheriff from Eureka County, Nevada. Apparently he wanted to be a police officer at 12 years old because he was a law enforcement explorer and cadet, and I can certainly go on and on about a great sheriff's career and a great law enforcement career, but let's get him on. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ken. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. I know you had a long day today. The Wounded Blue is definitely a full-time job. So you're probably maybe even doing more work now in retirement.
It's funny. I was at a meeting this morning with at a retirement meeting this morning for somebody that's going to get medically retired. And the person asked me, "What do you do now?" Or "What do I do now?" I said, "I'm busier now than I ever was working." So I don't know. Buckle up. I'm gonna guess, but yeah, exactly.
As they say, just put that under, be careful what you wish for.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little, you've had a storied career in law enforcement. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us a little bit what it was like, working in Eureka County, which I know a lot of people probably have never been to in Nevada.
Absolutely. So, as you stated, I started my law enforcement experience and such at a young age of 12 when I became a cadet. And I worked there at the Amity Police Department in the state of Oregon from then until 2011 when I moved to, and I got hired as a full-time police officer there, and worked the road, worked traffic supervisor for the county. And then I moved to Nevada, went down and worked the illustrious Strip in Las Vegas for a little while. That was a fun little jaunt. And then I was working Safe Strip one night with a police officer from Boulder City Police Department, and he told me right after an arrest, he told me, he was like, "Jesse, you'd be the perfect Eureka cop." And I'm like, "Where's Eureka?" And I'd only been in Nevada about 2 years at that point. He tells me, and he was like, "Yeah, I worked up there for 15 years, and then I came down here for my top three, and it was a great career, yada yada." And lo and behold, about 6 months later, the wife and I decided, Vegas is probably not the best place to raise kids. I started looking, applied at the Eureka County Sheriff's Office as a deputy, got hired by the illustrious Sheriff Ken Jones. At that time, he was the longest serving sheriff in the state of Nevada.
Oh.
30 years career as the sheriff itself. Great leader. I worked for another sheriff right after that was not the best sheriff, that was a terrible leader. And I literally said, I can't watch him burn this department to the ground and run this community into the ground. So if you want to gripe about something, you got to do something.
Yeah.
So I put my name in the hat for sheriff at the whopping age of 31 years old and got elected against two people in the primary election, and took office January of 2019. Got reelected in 2022, and then just retired this April. So
wow, yeah, you've done a lot in a short time, my friend.
Yeah, worked 20 years total, 2004 to this year, 21 years, right at 21 years and 8 days to be exactly. But from public safety, traffic, DRE, basic patrol officer, deputy sheriff, DRE, deputy coroner, all the way
Yeah, I
up
was
to
gonna
being the sheriff
say,
and coroner.
I remember reading that you were a coroner. I don't get too many coroners
Yeah.
on this show.
So there's a couple states in the United States that the sheriff is the coroner. California is one of them where, and except for in metropolitan areas,
Yeah.
like LA County. But most sheriffs in the state of California are sheriff coroners. And a lot of people don't know that.
Hmm.
Um, Nevada is the same way. So 15 of the 17 counties, the sheriff is the coroner. Um, and the other two, which is Las Vegas and Washoe County, they have a appointed medical examiner.
Mhm.
So um, it's quite interesting. I used to say that was my favorite part of the job because those people didn't talk back. Um, but the true part of it is that was one of my favorite parts of the job because we got to write the final chapter of somebody's life
Yeah.
that would be forever remembered by the family and such. And the to the dead we owe honor, and to the living we owe the truth. And
Mhm.
that truth sometimes was not well liked, just
Yeah.
based on um, what the cause and manner of death was. But sometimes it brought a lot of closure and peace to people. So
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Did you have to go through, do these folks and yourself have to go through special coroner training? Or are you or
yeah.
you just
So
look it up on a YouTube and old
what's the TikTok show me on death? Yeah, that's it.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
no. So yeah, we went through medical legal training for basic coroner investigations, basic death investigations,
Mhm.
advanced homicide investigations, death scenes, you name it. Um, my entire staff, when I was working there as a deputy, um, only the sheriff and undersheriff were sheriff and coroner, and then the undersheriff was a deputy coroner. So only those two in the entire county could pronounce death. Um,
Yeah.
so I took over. I was like, we need to be a force multiplier. There's no reason for me to be running everywhere,
Hmm.
and saying, "Oh yeah, they're dead. Yeah, they're dead," and giving a cause and manner. I would sign off on every death certificate in the county, or I appointed a chief deputy coroner, who had just as much, if not more, experience than I did when it comes to death investigations. So, um, you know, but being able to give my deputies that training
Hmm.
on the whole aspect of it, and then have thorough investigations times 20 deputies versus two, made it a great workforce multiplier, and great resource dividing of resources, because we had 4,180 square miles. You can't be
Yeah.
everywhere at once. So
Yeah, for those that are watching or listening, yeah, I personally haven't been to Eureka County, but it's pretty rural in the middle of the desert and probably fairly close to Reno, if I remember it correctly, looking at a map.
4 hours from Reno.
Okay.
So we are 130 miles one way to a Walmart. We are 80 miles to the closest town, and the closest town does not have anything elaborate. 4,180 square miles. We do not have a single traffic light.
Hmm.
And there is no chain restaurants or stores in the entire county.
But is
Everything
there
there
but is there a
is
dispensary?
no, there's not. So Eureka County is a very historical county, and they passed an ordinance years ago that said no prostitution and no marijuana.
Wow.
And uh, it's been challenged lawfully, by some people that have gotten some marijuana licenses and wanted to start a dispensary, but the board has never approved a dispensary in the entire county. Um, so yeah, no, there is not a single marijuana dispensary in the county.
So if you want quiet, move to Eureka County. If you want to have a good time, go to Vegas.
Very much so. I've traveled the entire state of Nevada. I've visited every single county in this state. And each one is unique in its own way for different reasons. But Eureka County, you go back 100 years the second you step there.
Wow.
Um, They shut down the highway on 4th of July for the kids to have egg toss game and nickel
Mm.
scramble and you name it. But yeah, it's a great place to raise kids because it's got one of the highest education systems in the state of Nevada, one of the best in the
Uh,
country. Because of the gold mines, which is the number one funding source for the county. Because of the gold mines, the education system there is second to none.
mm.
The gym is $19 million gym, brand new indoor running track. You look in Las Vegas and you got LVACs that's, these big, huge gyms and such. The high school gym is exactly that. It's got a
Mm.
turf field for a football field. They've got brand new coach buses for travel buses for their kids to travel for sports and such. So, I mean, yeah, it's a great place for that.
Are you looking for a podcast to answer some financial questions? Well, then check out the Mortgage Beat podcast, brought to you by Police Mortgage, for first responders who are second to none. Mortgage Beat gives insight into the home loan process specifically for police officers, firefighters, and other public safety professionals. The podcast is hosted by Police Mortgage CEO John Aritos, who has decades of experience in the mortgage industry. Check out Mortgage Beat on Spotify today.
You mentioned going back 100 years. Let's not go back that far. Let's go back to last year. I believe it's November of 2024 when you took over as the new executive director of the Wounded Blue, and we've talked a lot about the Wounded Blue here on Public Safety Talk Radio. Big supporters of what the Wounded Blue does. What attracted you to that opportunity?
So a couple different things. I've known Randy for years just because Randy's Randy and not iconic in Nevada and America because of his career at Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. But through the years, we would come in contact with each other and such. A couple years back, I sent a couple of my staff members to the summit in Las Vegas, and they came back and literally told me changed their lives.
Mm.
And one of my staff members had a 20-year career under their belt at that point in time, and literally said, "This is life changing," and I don't know how I've went 20 years with this, with not being able to experience something like this. Fast forward, we had Randy and Bob Bemis, the director of training and education, up in Eureka last year, 2024, for the law enforcement leadership summit that I hosted in Eureka, and we had speakers from all over the country come in. And we asked for Randy and Bob to come in with Walking with the Wounded, to give a presentation to our staff on that. And during that conversation, him and I had a deep conversation with Travis Yates, who's a member of the board of directors, about the trajectory of the Wounded Blue and some of the struggles and such. Fast forward, they lost their executive director in August of last year. Randy and I got on a phone call in August and September, talk about the Wounded Blue and what to do, and kind of continued that conversation from April. And we really looked at it and said, okay, this is something that we both can be aligned on. October, I announced my retirement from the sheriff's office, and the opportunity presented itself for me to align and join up with Randy and the Wounded Blue to make this the premier nonprofit organization that supports officers. I've been the vice president of the Northern Nevada Concerns of Police Survivors for years, and I unfortunately been a member of that organization for over a decade, because I've lost over 13 officers in the line of duty over my career. But the organization cops fell short when it comes to supporting current officers or officers that are injured. And so I thought my skill set, my expertise, and the trajectory and vision that I had, we could align and really level up the organization. And so buckled down. In November, I started as the executive director, and it was head on fire. Let's run forward.
Yeah.
Um, from complete revamp of social media to website to programs to the inception of some programs like the Wounded Blue 100, which I know you're a member of, and just leveling up basically. Where do we go from here? Is we
Yeah.
can't do the same thing expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity.
Hmm.
So being able to really take a skill set and push it forward is my big thing.
Yeah, yeah. As an outsider, first of all, Randy was mega excited. I know he told me late last year that you were coming on board, and I could tell the excitement that he had. And I know from personal experience, you start something, and there's a lot of momentum for something like the Wounded Blue, or in my case, Police Officers Credit Union Association. And you get 3, 4, 5 years into it, and there's still enthusiasm for it, but then it needs something else. Sometimes that's new ideas, sometimes that's new leadership, sometimes that's just a revamp. And I could see from looking as an outsider that you've brought that to the table, to the Wounded Blue.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's the goal, is to push this forward and make this organization, a common household name. Not because more officers are getting injured, where you actually want to reduce that, but the
Hmm.
fact that people know about us, the fact that officers know about us, the fact that when an officer gets hurt, which is multiple times a day, that the first thing that an agency or an entity says is, "Hey, make sure that we get the referral form for the Wounded Blue." Um, you know, I've said this at a presentation I did recently, but if an officer gets killed in the line of duty, there's a whole list of things that are automatically triggered. Benefits and certain things. Um, why not injured officers?
Yeah.
Um, Last year we lost 165 officers total in the line of duty that were added to the memorial, and the number of officers injured last year was reported injuries was 89,000.
Hmm.
I say reported because I know for a
Yeah.
fact that is a grossly, grossly underreported number.
Well, even at 89,
29,000,
yeah, 89,000 in and of itself is a big damn number, Jesse.
that's a big number, but realistically, when you look at that,
Yeah.
it's grossly underreported. And I said this. I was speaking at the National Sheriff's Association conference a couple weeks ago, and I asked the room, I said, how many of you have gotten a scuff on the knee or a whacked elbow or a little cut from a fence and never reported it? I want hands. And every single person in that room
Hmm.
raised their hand. And I said, and every single one of you have done that once to 10 times in your career. And that is 10 unreported incidents. Said, there's 100 people in here. That's 100 unreported incidents per event. Think of this. I said 89,000 reported injuries of officers, 29,000 assaults on officers last year. That's insanity to me. So when I experienced being injured in the line of duty and literally abandoned by my county workman's comp, um, that truly was an eye opener for me. I'm like, what is happening? Like, if that can
Yeah.
happen to me as the sheriff, it can happen to anybody.
Hmm.
I got injured in 2023. I fell down an embankment going to a car crash, broke my leg in 5 places, and workman's or the human resource department waited 3 weeks to file my paperwork with workman's comp. So the delay, and by the time I got the MRI and all the things I needed to get, it was 12 weeks later. And he literally said, he goes, Jesse, I'm not re-breaking your leg to fix it. He
Yeah.
goes, it's been 3 months. I'm not touching that. So I know that happens over and over and over again every day. So
Hmm.
it's our job to be there and to be available to help. But it's my job as the executive director to get us to be known, the awareness level, the recognition level at a local, state, federal level, and being able to get these officers resources.
Yeah, it's a definite blind spot. It's become less of one since the Wounded Blue started, and it's becoming, more known now that you've taken over. But yeah, I've never been in law enforcement, but I've worked with law enforcement officers in some way, shape, or form for well over 20 years. And I was blind to it until, I got introduced to Randy, I want to say 2 3 years ago. And it wasn't, certainly wasn't a blind eye. It was just ignorance.
Right.
And it was even ignorance, among, I mean, the Police Officers Credit Union Association. These institutions are run by cops, retired cops,
Right.
active cops, even on the board of directors. And it never really came up. It's funny, and I said this after becoming aware of the Wounded Blue, is that on the front end, our credit unions do an awesome job of helping the gals and the guys in the academy. Not just teaching about, financial wellness, but also saying, all right, you got to buy a uniform. I was talking to somebody else in the city of Chicago, where I'm from. It amazes me how much stuff, Chicago cop, he gets on the job and how much he or she has to frickin' buy themselves. And they do a great job of giving them 0% loans and things so they can get their career started and get out there with the right equipment. And you're exactly right. Even, with our credit unions, with the killed in line of duty debt protection, or what COPS does, and a lot of other organizations, God forbid, an officer loses his or her life. You're right. All kinds of things, just
Hmm.
snowball, and there's a domino effect. But there was a huge gap in, okay, like you said, you break your leg in 5 places, and maybe you can go back to work, maybe you can't. I've literally heard stories over the last couple of years, like, well, if you had died, there was a lot of things that we could do, but you're still alive and you can't work, so now we don't know what to do with you.
So there was a a recent incident. I say recent incident, 2021. Officer Tyler Smith with the Marion, Illinois Police Department, your old neck of the woods in Illinois, but
Yeah.
um, no fault of his own, got an injury on the job in a foot pursuit with a suspect. Um, got bit by a canine inadvertently. Dog didn't know, it was him versus the suspect running. Bit him. The wound got terribly infected, terrible medical care. And ultimately, he made the decision to amputate his lower leg. And during that process, during the entire injury and everything, they put him in a mailroom, giving out mail to the police department city, because what do I do with you? Right? You can't be a cop. What good are you? And the lack of identity and recognition that that individual received was disgusting. The fact that he never received, and he ultimately had to medically retire because of his injury. Like I said, he got an amputation. The police department basically washed their hands of him. There's people in this world that are amputees that are law enforcement, and the reasonable accommodation just didn't stick, or didn't, wasn't there. And he said this to me when we were giving him the Order of the Blue Heart Award. He said, if there's benefits for those that died, but for us, there's not. And I'm like, that's the disgusting part for me.
Yeah.
Um, the public safety officer benefits is a federal benefit that gives the family of fallen officers just over $400,000. Plus, they get ancillary benefits like college or tuition reduction, and depending on the state, like state of Nevada, you get state college for free for your kids and certain things. But a lot of people don't know that that PSOB is also eligible for catastrophic injuries that take your career. And it's us that help people facilitate that and help people walk that path, because that PSOB benefit paperwork is a nightmare. Is a
I can
It
imagine.
literally takes an act of Congress to get any movement at all out of the PSOB. Recently, the one of the senators wrote to his body because of the atrociousness that it takes for PSOB benefits. So,
Yeah,
but
and go ahead.
getting the awareness out there for individuals to even know that there's benefits to be had is huge. Getting people aware of, oh, you're injured and you need help filling out the workman's comp paperwork because you don't know what to do is the struggle that we've had, and that's the uphill battle that we're gonna keep trudging forward on.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question. You know, you've been on board for less than a year. And you know, you're already busy, as you mentioned before we even press record, that I think I'm your eighth meeting of the day or something like that.
Yep.
And I appreciate the work that you're doing. So, you know, as you look forward as the fairly new executive director and somebody that I certainly hope is going to be around for a while, you know, what is the vision? You know, looking out 3, 5, even 7 years, what is the vision for the Wounded Blue?
The vision for the Wounded Blue is to be the household, to be in everybody's name and everybody know what the Wounded Blue is. The awareness is there. Concerns of Police Survivors is a national organization that's had 40 years. They've had 40 years to get their name out there, and people know what cops is. I
Hmm.
want us to be the cops of injured officers, but not take 40 years to get there.
Yeah.
The true part is the next 18 months, I want us on national stages. I want us be a seat at the table at Senate and Congress and the White House when we're talking about legislative changes. We're looking at state legislative changes state by state right now for benefits. And the Wounded Blue was a big part of Nevada's law change in the 2023 session for mental health and first responders um, and those things. Getting the awareness is the number one thing that I want to do.
Yep. And I think that that's not only a great vision, that is an awesome objective to focus on, to make the Wounded Blue into that household name, you know, especially for folks like me that are civilian but support vehemently what police and border patrol and all law enforcement, including ICE agents, do every day.
Yeah, that's a spot that has been overlooked for years is federal law enforcement system because
Mhm.
they they're so segregated and they're so um, segregated yet diversified so much. I said this the other day when I was in a meeting. I had four federal agents with me, and all four had two different agency credentials and worked for four different agencies. So realistically, and three of them didn't work for the same agency as the other ones. So
Mhm.
I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, this one guy has the credentials for two agencies. So you're actually a double agent. And these are the two agencies, and you're a double agent, and these are the two agencies, but it's not those two agencies. It's just nuts on that.
Yeah.
The other sad part is the federal benefit system sucks if you get injured. God, it sucks. Like we were specifically talking about an injury and the California riots and such, and
Hmm.
the number of actually injured cops was insane. But,
But wait a minute. I live in Los Angeles County. It was peaceful, I hear, according to all the politicians out here. That's what that it certainly isn't what I saw. But it was peaceful. Come on,
I'm
Jesse.
gonna I'm gonna tell you the clowns that run the politics in that county and the city are a joke. In my opinion, I've yeah. There's a lot of things that you can tolerate and you can sweep under the table and all these things, but the pure riot and breach of peace and such, that was disgusting. The first couple days they just stood there like this and hands off and didn't do anything, got spit on, got stuff thrown on it. Absolutely not. I I used to carry 20 plus pairs of handcuffs in my go bag, in my door, on me, you name it. And people would always say, what do you need that for? You never know. One riot,
Yeah.
one deputy. I'm showing up and people are going in handcuffs. I was talking to somebody yesterday actually that they said back in the day, law enforcement officers would put you in handcuffs a heck of a lot faster than they do today because of safety and because of, oh,
Mhm.
you want to talk back, and they got probable cause. And nowadays cops will stand their hands off for way too long, and the problem
Mhm.
will get way too big before stuff happens. The old methodology of ask them, tell them, make them is long out the door because of de-escalation and all the wonderful politic words. And I tell them, me asking them was de-escalating them. Me telling them was de-escalating them. Now I'm going to make them, and that is the
Mhm.
de-escalation, because if not, they're not going to like the end result.
Yeah.
And the other thing about law enforcement is, and a lot of civilians know this, but uh, silent majority, is that suspects dictate what we do. We don't just go out and use force. I hate the use of force
Mhm.
language. We don't go out and use force. We respond to resistance and aggression every day. We don't use force. Um, we respond to it. And so for cops and suspects to sit there and get injured because of suspects injure actions is disgusting.
Yeah.
You have mom crying, "Oh, my baby got a broken leg." Okay, and the cops got two broken ribs, a broken leg, is in the hospital, and nothing. But your son caused that.
Mhm.
We need to call it out the way it is. The onus needs to go on the suspect, not on the cops.
Yeah, yeah, you're preaching to the choir. Maybe I'm naive, but I hope one day in the state of California where I live, we get some common sense. I still laugh at Karen Bass saying when federal agents showed up at MacArthur Park, there were people camping peacefully. It's like, yeah, they were camping because you had a homeless group over there, and then on the other side you had people dealing drugs, and so don't tell me how nice MacArthur Park was before law enforcement showed up. But anyhow, I'll preach it to the choir.
I saw a meme the other day that said the best title for Mayor Bass is at the end of her name. And I thought that was a fitting title. Like, yes, you couldn't say that better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's go back to the Wounded Blue, because otherwise we'll just share stories and and frustrate ourselves. But you've already started to make some positive changes and additions. You mentioned the social media, which we're seeing a lot more of, which I think is fantastic. And you also introduced, which we talked about a little bit, the Wounded Blue 100 program that I'm personally proud to be a part of, that is really helping the organization, and giving the members of that group some really clear benefits. Tell us about this Wounded Blue 100 program.
Yeah, so the Wounded Blue 100 Club was a inception idea that Randy and I were sitting down talking one day, and talking about how to really funnel for the infrastructure funding of the organization versus just taking a little bit of each donation and to pay for the overhead, the marketing, the campaigns, the travel, you name it. As part of our organization, we travel, to get to injured officers, to get to
Mhm.
police departments, to go do some training and education, and such. So there's cost incurred with that. And I asked, what what's the mechanism for funding that infrastructure funding? And it was just, well, we just pay for it out of the donations and such. So I came up with the idea based on another organization that I'm part of that has a similar program. I asked the question. I said, can we do a club where people pay membership fees and they get something out of it? And he was like, well, what are you talking about? And so I came up with the Wounded Blue 100 Club, and it's 100 unique networked individuals or businesses that can come together, and um, their contribution through membership fee uh, pays for the infrastructure. It pays for the overhead. It pays for all the things that donations really shouldn't be paying for. And so we launched it in beginning of this year. Realistically, And there's two levels. The Wounded Blue 100 Club basic is $2,500 a year. It's a one-time donation, and those funds are used exactly for what I said, the infrastructure. And then the Elite Club is $5,000 a year, and there's only 20 of those. There's only 20 of the elite members allowed out of that 100, and they get additional things to that advertise them or their businesses. They get a network of the individuals that are co-members and other members, and then they also get certain discounts at our summit and other things. But they get to be what pays for the infrastructure of the organization, so that donations can go to straight funding of officers injured.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned the Law Enforcement Survival Summit. We had a chance to talk to Randy about that a couple weeks ago. And that's coming up in just a little while, the week of September 22nd. Tell us a little bit about what the Wounded Blue 100 people can expect during the summit, and also tell those folks that should be attending what they can expect.
Yeah, for sure. So the National Law Enforcement Survival Summit, this is the fifth annual. It is truly a life-changing event. Like I said earlier, I sent a couple staff members to it, and they came back and said, "I've got a 20-year career, and how did I not know about some of
Yeah.
these things?" The summit is going to focus on mental health, physical health, financial health, surviving the career in all aspects and after. Because as a lot of people may not know, the first 6 months after retirement or after separation from law enforcement is the most deadly for a cop, because you've lost your identity, purpose,
Mhm.
everything, sense of service and everything. So the Survival Summit is able to offer some career transition coaching. We've got Jessica Flores as one of the speakers this year on career coaching and surviving after the chaos, and um, realistically, physically, mentally, emotionally able to thrive after this summit. Give you tools for your toolbox. You get some camaraderie with 200 people that are exactly where you are, or exactly where you've been, or somebody in that room may have been suicidal at one point, and you're close to that now, and you never saw a light at the end of the tunnel, and they've told their story on how they got through it and now offer peer support for you. One of the things the Wounded Blue offers is independent and confidential peer support. And our team we've got over a dozen members that are going to be at the summit this year, specifically to be the additional support for you, because you're not walking this alone. As part of the Wounded Blues mantra is never forgotten, never alone. That is exactly it, where our peer members are there for you. During the summit, we'll be highlighting Wounded Blue 100 members. We'll be highlighting our sponsors, because truly, without the sponsors and the Wounded Blue 100 Club members, we wouldn't be able to thrive as an organization. We wouldn't be able to thrive and get the summit off the ground and truly put this training on to impact the lives and the lives of the officers and spouses of law enforcement that are going to be in attendance.
That's awesome. Yeah, I could, as I said when we had Randy on, I've been an attendee and a vendor with a table the last couple of years at the Law Enforcement Survival Summit. Actually representing a couple of my clients, Police Mortgage and the National Police Federal Credit Union, and it has been an awesome event. Some of the stories, some of the help that is really given right there on the spot is amazing.
We've had officers stand up and say, if it wasn't for this summit, I was going to commit suicide.
Yeah.
If it was not for the help I received here, I wouldn't be alive. And so it's truly an impactful 4 days, 3.5 days. And it's heavy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's heavy. We talk about some dark things. We talk about some great things. You hear from some amazing speakers, Tom Rizzo, John Kelly, John Mattingly. John Mattingly got shot in the femoral artery in the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville Metro. Doug White hiding in plain sight. He was a lieutenant with the Hillsborough Police or Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in the state of Florida. And his story is it's called Tell This Story because as he was going through a disciplinary issue and got demoted and such because of admin and him and some of the people told him, be careful how you tell this story. And he says, tell what story? Tell the truth? I'm not okay. So his entire book and everything is based on tell this story because of that. Be careful how you tell this story. Well, the truth doesn't need to be buttered up and put a rose on. Period. Oh, we got Nick Dougherty, who is
the financial cop. Yeah.
The financial cop. Yeah. Great man. Great service that he provides to cops nationwide. We've got Jody Pollard, who works for the Justice First Credit Union. She's going to be doing a different avenue than Nick. Showing what Justice First offers as far as help for officers injured and the 0% and such. So that's some cool stuff. We got the Angry Viking, Mr. Dr. Travis Wilkins. Great friend, great guy. He is actually the one that my deputy, she came back from that training and said, I wish he was licensed in Nevada because I would start seeing him. And I, as the sheriff said, I don't care if he's licensed here or not, go see him. And she sees him on a regular basis, but Trevor's a great guy and nationally recognized, double doctorate holder, just a great dude. John Kelly's story, if you haven't read it, it's law enforcement leadership or law enforcement life coach. Sometimes heroes needs help. And he talks about how he walked the path of every part of all of our darkest demons, from alcohol to adultery to you name it. And he's very open and honest about it. And he'll connect with somebody in that room going, damn it, this is me. And I didn't see a way out, but now I know there's a way out because that guy did it.
So. Yeah, that's such an excellent point. I made that with Randy, and I've said this a number of times about the summit for folks that are active police officers. You would know this better than I would, but I've come in contact with people that, sometimes you're dealing with something and maybe isn't as critical as, say, suicide, but it's definitely not nothing.
Right.
And you don't want to necessarily go to your partner or your department on it. And sometimes you just need a little bit of help. Sometimes you just need to talk to one person. In the Law Enforcement Survival Summit is a good place to do that.
Well, we have courageous conversations. That's the real part, is we have a fireside session that we call a fireside chat, that it's an open mic, and we literally walk around and give the mic to people and they tell their story on what had them deep in suicidal thoughts, what had them deep in I didn't think they weren't suicidal, but they didn't think that there was a way out, all the way up to just you're in a room with 200 people that just get it. You're in a room with people that when you thought there was no light at the end of the tunnel, they tell their story and you're like, dang it, I felt that exact same way. But one of our peer support members, Brian Gillespie, he was recently on a podcast, and I saw it yesterday, and I thought it was a really interesting segue that he said. But when you go and look at disabilities, and there's signs for disabilities, there's handicap wheelchair, and there's guys in walkers and guys with canes and such. And so he said he saw those 3 logos, and you can obviously tell who has a disability in those, right? They're clearly marked. And then the 4th one he saw was the men's room logo. It's just the men's room logo, just the guy standing there, right? And he said it. He goes, that one's me. He's not the men's room, but the fact was that it doesn't look like anything's wrong, but something is.
Yeah.
And our silent struggles are a real thing. Um, I am somebody that struggled in silence for way too long, and luckily for me, I got help in 2021, and I'm alive today because of it. So,
Yeah.
um, his story about, you know, you can't see the walker, you can't see the wheelchair, you can't see the cane because it's not on the outside, was pretty cool, and a great way of looking at that. Doesn't mean it's any less of a disability. Doesn't mean it's more of a disability. It's just there. So
Yeah, yeah, and we're glad you got help, and we're glad you're doing what you're doing, Jesse. And I've had Brian Gillespie on Public Safety Talk Radio, and fellow recovering alcoholic, and I can speak personally on that. That you don't see you walk by me, you didn't see the problem 6 years ago necessarily, but it was definitely there. So
fact, December 9th, 2023 is the day I quit drinking.
yeah.
And it's same exact thing.
Yeah, Diet 7 Up is awesome, man.
A Diet Coke, any of them?
My new favorite go-to over the last 5.5 years. But awesome conversation. I really, really appreciate what you do. I appreciate you taking a lot of time, frankly, on a really busy day. Before I let you go, for those folks that want to support the Wounded Blue, for those folks that want to attend the Law Enforcement Survival Summit, for those folks that want to be a part of the Wounded Blue 100, how best can they find the Wounded Blue out there?
So you can go to www.thewoundedblue.com, or the www.thewoundedblue.org. Either one will get you to our website. The website's got all the resources. It's got about us, our mission. It's got our team on there. It's got a link directly to the Wounded Blue 100 Club and what you get, what you see, how to sign up as a member, supporting us directly there. There's a store on there for some swag, some cool hats and shirts and challenge coins and such. Training and education part, the awards program that we have, the Order of the Blue Heart, the Citizens Award for Valor, and other things. And then the summit itself is linked right there. You can also go to the summit's website at twbsummit.com, and look over the video that's got all the speakers. It's got the itinerary. It's got the reduced room rate at the Palace Station. It's got everything there for you to be able to look at and see. That's at twbsummit.com. But everything can be found at thewoundedblue.org. And we can be connected via the message group on there, or the message feature on there. You can email us, you can call us at our 833-892-8255 number, and get a hold of Randy, myself, or the team anytime, 24/7. So
yeah, definitely go check out thewoundedblue.org. If you haven't already signed up for the Law Enforcement Survival Summit, do so today. And big time, thank you, Jesse, for coming on in a real busy day. I appreciate it, my friend.
thank you, Ken. I appreciate being here.
Now, thank you. And thank you to all of you who have either watched or listened to this episode of Public Safety Talk Radio. And we'll be back with you next week with another great guest. Public Safety Talk Radio is produced by the POCUA. POCUA is a consortium of financial institutions serving law enforcement as well as other first responders and public safety professionals. To learn more about our association and to find one of our credit unions or service providers near you, go to www.policecreditunions.com. And always remember, if you aren't working with one of our POCUA credit unions, you're just banking with an institution that just so happens to serve first responders. As a public safety professional, you and your family deserve better. Find a POCUA credit union today.